God calls Samuel next, and there are two books of Samuel in our Bible. Originally, it was Samuel Kings, were all one book. But Samuel is the story of a young man, Shemuel. God hears is what his name means, because a woman was praying and praying. Her name was Hannah. Hannah means grace. And she prayed and prayed that God would give her a child. Her rival wife, there was another wife belonging to her husband, Elkanah, and her rival wife had a bunch of kids, but she didn't have any kids, and she finally promised God, if you give me a son, I will give him to you and let him be raised in the tabernacle under the priests. And so God gave her a son, and she named him Shemuel, God hears, Samuel. And God then called Samuel as a young man, probably in his teen years. God called Samuel to become a prophet, to be the last judge of Israel and the first prophet of Israel. And Samuel is an amazing person. He is the advisor to the first king of Israel. Now, Samuel is heartbroken that the people want a king. He thinks that people are rejecting him, but God tells Samuel, they're not just rejecting you, they're rejecting me as their king. And so the people clamored for a king. We want to be like all the nations around us. We want to have a king. And so God chose a man by the name of Saul, Shaul in Hebrew. Saul was a tall, handsome young man, head and shoulders taller than anyone else in Israel. And God chose him, and the people were very excited about Samuel. And Samuel became a great king for a while. And then Samuel became a little bit arrogant, and he denied the word of God and rejected the word of God. And God finally had to reject him, and he chose another man to be king. And Samuel went out and anointed this young man. The man's name is David. David means beloved. And two of the prophets, Amos and Hosea, call the Messiah who is to come, the Christ, David. And that name David is pronounced by God over his son at his baptism. When Jesus is baptized, God says from heaven, this is my son, the David, the beloved, in whom I am well pleased. And so David becomes the greatest king in the history of Israel. He becomes a symbol for the coming Messiah. And Samuel anointed David 3 times with oil. He's the only king ever anointed 3 times. You can read the story in 1 Samuel.